In this thread, dreams that felt so real you think they're from a past life. I'll start. Be me, regular Joe IRL in his early 20s. Had a dream about World War II one night. I was a Marine in a jungle in Asia, and me and my squad were ready to take the fight to the enemy, the Japanese. Walking right into a Japanese ambush, gunfire and stuff everywhere. Couldn't see anything because the vegetation was just too heavy. Order my guys to fire back. It's total chaos. My ears are ringing, and I can't hear anything, despite being in a dream. Guy to my right is hit. See something flying my way. Crap, it's a grenade. Think of my family back home, my wife and my 2 daughters. Wake up in a panic, right as the grenade explodes. But yeah, this dream has always bothered me, because usually when I dream, everything feels really distant, and like it's not me in a dream. This one though felt really personal, and like my very soul was in the dream. I even knew what I looked like. Black hair, 6'11", brown eyes, stocky, without even looking at myself in the mirror or anything like that, and I also knew my rank. I've also always felt emotional when American soldiers die in movies or whatever, and I'm not even from the States. Okay X, your turn. I had something similar, but set in Eastern Front. Be me, 16 back then. Dreamt of being young German paratrooper. Knew it was in Russia, 1944, early summer. Had memories of earlier events, despite not having dreamt of them before, such as me joking with friends in training and previous battle. My regiment had to rotate with a battered one at a poorly dug out defensive position. I have a bad feeling about this. Got posted to a foxhole at the forefront of the defensive line. Everyone else to my back, just me with an SMG and a Panzerfaust, gets bombarded by artillery, with a shell landing in front of me, right outside blast radius. Tanks rushed towards us after artillery stopped, with infantry following behind. Skillfully waited for the tank to get close so I could pop up and kill it with the Panzerfaust. Somehow missed, despite the tank being around 25 meters away. Slight panicking. Get scolded by NCO, and someone else blew up the tank. Climbed back into foxhole and waited for the infantry to close in. Tried to shoot in controlled bursts, but not hitting anyone because skills are terrible as I was used to a bolt-action rifle. Oh crap. Started to just spray aimlessly with the Russians getting close, throwing a grenade out every now and then. Keep spraying, reloading, and repeat. In my last reload, I heard someone call out to me, someone I thought not to be there, and I looked behind, but I could not see who that was. Suddenly spot something under the tank I failed to destroy earlier, a Russian rifleman with a field cap, I remember distinctly. I tried to pull the trigger, hear a crisp plink, feel something on my forehead, lose all control of my body, and I just slump forward, blacking out, and then I wake up. I never had a dream where I had a memory of that world before. For example, some of my friends had a real-life counterpart. I knew the unit did not have full training, and I remember how I dropped my rifle and picked up the SMG during house-to-house fighting. Quite a lot for a dream. German paratrooper and on here. I remember feeling intense deja vu watching some documentary on Discovery Channel 1 or 2 years before the dream. First proper introduction to World War II German troops, and I'd stick with German weapons in World War II games because they felt familiar. Also, I frequently have headaches. I have strange marks on my lower back, near my spine, that look like scratch marks, but I have no idea if it is related or not. The grenade in my dream exploded on the ground, and I am the only one in my family with loose ligaments in my legs. My knees can dislocate if I don't pay attention, which means I'll never be able to join the military. I think of it as some kind of karmic justice. I have a good one I will always remember. Be me, 5 years old or so. Dream that I'm in a savannah-looking place. In the dream, I am a young boy, maybe 12 years old. I'm in a small circular straw hut, maybe 6 square meters. There's an older person there, an authority figure. Suddenly, feel an oppressive sense of incoming danger, almost as if an enemy army is approaching the hut fast. The older authority person points to a spear on the wall of the straw hut and tells me I need to take it up. I've never handled a spear before, and I'm just a boy. I feel that I need to act, either fight or run fast. Then I grab the spear, and the dream ends. I always will remember this dream. It felt as if that was me in a previous life. When I was very young, I think 4/5, I had a recurring, terrifying nightmare. I was on some kind of dirt mountain, more like a tower, like a tall rock in the Grand Canyon, but I don't think it was there. It felt like ancient times, and I was on my knees, being forced to read thousands of pages in so many books. There were some entities I didn't see standing there, forcing me to do it. It seemed like the most impossible task, and I felt consigned to be doing it forever. Subsequently, something spiritual happened to me at the dawn of the internet, and I have spent 20 years doing just that, but using the internet, searching for the truth, answers to everything, life, the universe, and so on. It's been more enjoyable in real life, but if I am honest, it came at the expense of so many other things. I don't regret it though. The only conclusion I came to is that if the end times come as something, perhaps I need to carry some of that knowledge forward so it isn't lost. The compelling feeling to learn, understand everything about the world, how it really is, at a top level, the concepts at least, I am no scientist, is so strong. It's my primary focus in life. I have to hide this from my wife and family to an extent. I spend at least 5 to 8 hours minimum a day trying to get to the bottom of it all. A lot of these just sound like dreams or musings, inspired by New Age, Spiritism, demonic shit, which leads me to my weird, New Age, Spiritism, demonic shit dreams. I've only had maybe 3 or 4 of them, but they are the closest thing I will consider a lucid or vivid dream, or a false awakening dream, because each starts off seemingly normal, as if I was awake, but within moments, I'll notice an object, say a backpack or a rock, just dangling in the air, as if suspended by something invisible. Then, when I process that it is weird, it's as if the invisible, whatever, doing to that object, freaks out, as if I just broke the rules of the game, and then I wake up. Once it happened, where it was just a big distortion in the air, in front of the fridge, and blocking the only exit out of a small kitchen. I chalk it up to demons and stuff, cause I used to mess with the occult in New Age a lot. Stopped after some bad experiences, went to Jesus instead. So they're a little peeved, I won't blindly open up to them anymore, even in dreams. That's some freaky stuff. Happy to hear you went to Jesus. That's where all roads led me, and my life is much better for it, and I feel protected against the demonic. I lived in Exeter, Devon, UK, for 2 years, above the green surrounding the cathedrals. There are thousands of bodies buried under there, from the Black Plague, and also Roman times. It's one of the most haunted cities in the UK. Local papers regularly report ghost happenings, as a matter of fact there. Our flat was haunted. Before it was flats, it was a restaurant storeroom. The manager had to keep a huge book to log the nightly weirdness. We had internal doors open, slam, knockings on external walls, 4-story, and much more. For 2 years, only the time I lived there, I had a recurring dream of being in an empty black void, endless. Then I wouldn't see it, but feel it. The darkest, most evil presence wanting to drag me away. Terrifying. Stopped after I left. My faith helps prevent fear of that kind of thing affecting me. So far so good. Side note, my brother, a total skeptic and non-believer, went there to visit me. I took him to a pub downstairs, told him some of the above. He said I don't believe in ghosts. Immediately after, 3 loud bangs on the pub table, no one else near. He thought it was me, but realized I was sat too far back, so he said it once more, and it happened again. That changed his mind. I get dreams from time to time where it's like I'm another person. When I wake up, I have to remember my actual life and memories. One time, I dreamt I had a black grandma who was dying of liver disease, and I was consoling her. I'm not black. One time, I dreamt I was a homeless person. I was squatting in an abandoned building, trying to get to sleep. I kept hearing weird scuttling in the corners of the room that kept me awake. All of a sudden, hundreds of rats come out of the shadows and start circling me. They all spoke together, like all their little rat voices combined to make a deep man's voice. I can't remember what they said, but I remember it being deeply unsettling. Around 4 or 5 years ago, I had a dream that I was serving in the Revolutionary War, and unlike most dreams I've had, I could remember it pretty clearly after I woke up. At the time, I only had entry-level knowledge of the war. The dream made me want to research the war, so I did, and found that the dream was pretty historically accurate. There was no way I could have dreamt it with the pleb-tierish history knowledge that I had at the time. I'm convinced it was either some genetic memory thing from an ancestor who served in the war, or a past life. The first one that comes to mind is how the muskets were portrayed in it. At the time, I had no idea how a musket worked, other than that it was a long gun that takes a while to load, but the dream depicted the process of loading and firing it completely accurately, such as using the paper cartridges containing both the bullet and the powder, which is something I had no idea they even did at that time. The uniforms were also pretty damn accurate too. That is convincing. The muskets were loaded in a very special manner in that war. The soldier had to open the paper cartridge and load the gunpowder first, then stuff the bullet along with the paper into the barrel manually. There is no way a person without experience could describe that process. My own experience comes from video games. I have very bizarre dreams, and about half of them involve my death. I've been shot with guns, a crossbow, decapitated myself with a chainsaw, fallen off of buildings, ripped apart by a bear, possibly burned, and probably some other ways I can't remember. For as long as I can remember, I've always had a morbid curiosity about violence. This could be a result of some traumatic experiences in my early childhood, like getting beat up on the street by a group of older kids, and my dad screaming at me when I was a toddler. I've always been a touch psychopathic, but when I hurt someone who has always been nice to me, I tend to feel remorse. Now that I think about it, I may have been a murderer in my past life. I don't necessarily condone what serial killers do, but I understand it in a way that most people I talk to find disturbing. The hunger for blood, the fantasy, the plan of action, the hunt, the control over the life of another, the satisfaction of seeing the chaos they've created. At the same time, I can put myself in the place of the victims and feel what they must have felt once they realized they were going to die. The dread, the panic, the desperation, the fight or flight, the pain and terror, and the light fading into the distance. This has given me the ability to distinguish people who are potential predators from those who are potential prey. Isn't the prevailing theory that most reincarnations occur within the same family lineage, or at the very least, the same race? My sis, who always has really surreal/crazy dreams, had a very detailed dream set in an Italian villa where she spoke to the family matriarch. We are Asian. We also share the same recurring nightmare: black greasy gears/train, an extremely loud engine, furnace, and mechanical noises. She's also had a few AP experiences without any sort of practice, but she does not know what astral projection is in the first place. She is Christian though. I've also astral projected 3 times. 2 were triggered by extreme stress, and the other time was when I randomly did a meditation retreat for like a day. Same here. I actually researched my World War II dream, and the 16th Regiment of the 6th Fallschirmjäger Division was indeed in Russia in summer 1944. The kind that was no longer fully trained, e.g., lower quality and insufficient parachute training, etc. It took me a while to research that because I did not know that the Fallschirmjäger used different helmets at first, and I was further confused by the fact that I wore the regular army helmet during training, only switching to the Fallschirmjäger helmet just before completion of training. Also, I just somehow knew I fought in a counterattack in a city, which the 16th Fallschirmjäger unit in July 1944, Vilnius, with intense house-to-house fighting. Think the actual battle scene was as realistic as it gets as well. Classic order of big artillery bombardment, tanks with mounted infantry, dismounted infantry, plus rest of infantry. I saw tanks that were visually accurate. T-34 tanks upon researching, and the Russian troops were dressed just like how they were supposed to be. Heck, even the earth that was blown into the air by artillery felt very hot when it landed on my hand. I don't believe it was from a past life, but still very strange. Years ago, I had a dream that I lost my virginity. I was mounted by a woman, and I could see and feel everything. The dream felt so lucid. I felt wide awake. It felt so real, like I could feel everything you would expect to feel. It seemed to go on for hours and hours, and then finished, and then we laid in bed together, saying nothing. When I woke up, I was genuinely surprised. I did not think I had been dreaming. From then on, even though I knew it was a dream, I no longer considered myself a virgin, even though I was. The experience just felt so real to me that I felt like it counted. Sometime later, when I lost my virginity in the physical world, it didn't feel new. The sensations felt just like they had in the dream, even though I hadn't experienced them yet at the time of having it. I didn't feel nervous about being a virgin because I didn't feel like one. I still consider that dream my first time. This one isn't about me, but I remember the story vividly. I was in my late teens at the time and going through a lot, and confided in my favorite uncle, who would offer me advice and let me crash at his ranch. One night, my uncle offered me a beer. I was 16 at the time. He is my cool uncle. He said he'd been having dreams of a little girl who came to visit him. She would come and ask him questions, and he would answer them meticulously. She appeared differently in each dream, but there were common elements in each incident, such as her hospital gown and scars and bandages on her abdomen. He says he'd watch her play. Then, without cause or reason, she would decide it was time to leave, and she would cordially bid him farewell each time. The last time he had the dream was different. The girl came in his dream, just like before, but seemed a bit somber this time. He said after a while of sitting on the floor playing, she stood up slowly and said with deep sadness on her face, "It's time for me to go. If you want to find me, I'll be sleeping over by the highway." In this case, Interstate 45, right near his ranch property. He said that at that moment, he woke in a cold sweat. He said he never told anyone the story besides me. Here's the kicker. My uncle owns a ranch in Texas where they found the remains of a young girl with an artificial feeding tube in her stomach. He had this dream just days before finding her body and reporting it to the authorities. To this day, I'm the only one in the family who he's told about his dreams. Here's a link to the story that was reported after my uncle called the authorities. I had many dreams growing up of fire bombings, whistles in the sky, melted asphalt all over people. Countless times died with a bomb blowing up in front of me. The problem is, these dreams were happening where I currently lived at the time. As I got older, the dreams warped to quarantine zones in places I have never been, and finally to something like torture chambers. Think like scary music playing in the background of some kind of inquisition/dungeon in some mountains in Europe. Good Fred. Well, them damn grenades. I got a gas grenade lobbed at me in a dream. I was a literal Charlie. I saw myself in both third person and first person. Normally I dream of myself, always. This time, I had ginger hair and a face of someone who I recognized as myself, but not from this lifetime. Was pretty certain/adamant about his name literally being Charlie. He had green uniform, general feel of World War I attire. Was walking towards the trench. Everything else was white like the Matrix. I knew I was dreaming whilst replaying this memory. Crap, it's a grenade. Because it was a dream, I ignore the grenade. Until suddenly, the air I am breathing starts to burn. I felt the immediate need for a gas mask, combined with the knowledge of it's too late, and I choked up on the gas, which by this time was an actual visible cloud. Did not make it to the trench. Woke up. Thought it was really odd that I knew what a gas grenade tasted like. Also, I never dream I had OP that I can relate to your story. Be me on an airplane, incredibly lucid. There is something wrong with the plane. Turbulence. It's going down. Can't seem to see anyone else on board, but was unaware it was actually a dream. Thought I was going to die there. All I could do was think of my mom, hoping she would know I was okay, and that I love her, and that this isn't her fault. Was very glad to wake up, alive, albeit really shaken up. Thought it was funny, read peculiar, that we both had the experience of being hit by a dream grenade. I've told this one before, but whatever. I can't find my own pasta. I dreamed this earlier this year. I was 24 years old at the time. I'm not sure if it was another life, but it really felt like one. I remember I woke up, tired as hell. Be me, but 8 years old, and in another family. Sister looks to be the same age, maybe 1 year older. Mom and dad were normal. Feels like the 70s. In a family trip to some woodhouse. Arrive. Go play with my sister in the woods. Just 2 kids running and laughing around. Suddenly my sister falls. I ask if she is okay and she nods. She says something pushed and holded her at the same time. Whatever. Go back to the house. Next day, she does not want to play outside. Mom and Dad say she should enjoy the sun. There we go again, just poking things and watching plants. Weird small screech gets our attention. Search around, but we can't find a single animal. In the whole dream, I did not see one animal, by the way. Loudest screech getting closer. We run to the house as fast as we can. Parents say it must be some animal. Whatever. Next day, she won't go play outside again. Mom said she heard a screech in the night. We couldn't play outside anyways. Okay. Boring trip ends. We go back to our own house. 5 years later, still in the same dream. Be in my bedroom. Hear that same loud screech. Wake up scared. Hear my sister screaming. Go to her room. She is fighting herself on the bed. Try to wake her up. She won't. She was almost choking herself with her own hands. Get on the bed and hold her arms. She is still suffocating. Dad comes and turns the lights on. She wakes up. Her bed is soaked in blood. I don't understand the bleeding. My dad does not understand anything. Dad punches me and asks what the hell is going on. Sister says it wasn't me. Mom comes and passes out. Ambulance comes and takes my sister. I don't understand what I did wrong. Next day in the hospital, sister talks about the nightmare she had. It's basically the Woodhouse trip, plus she found the carved toy. She thinks it's linked to her nightmares. Mom and Dad think she is hallucinating. I tell my side of the story. Mom believes it, Dad does not. A doctor came by and said she had to talk to my parents. Okay. Dad certainly wants to kill me. Security has to hold him down. Mom looks at me and we had a conversation. She asks what exactly happened. I tell the same story. Mom tells me it isn't true. Mom tells me that whatever happened, it really hurt my sister and I should help them by telling the truth. But I am telling the truth. Tell Mom to ask sister about what exactly happened. Sister tells the same story I told. It turns out my sister was assaulted, but no one believes in me not being guilty. 10 months go by. Our story was well known and published in papers. Our entire town knows about 13-year-old assaults his own sister. She basically dropped out of school. I changed school several times. This made my mom really work a lot because my sister would not leave the house and I was depressed. Meanwhile, Dad became drunk permanently. That assault got my sister pregnant and she gave birth. The newborn was an aberration. Pale green skin, red lips, black eyes, no ears, no hair, plain nose. The body was all wrong. Humanoid, but definitely not human. Mom knew that my sister would not be able to give birth without another media scandal, so she prepared herself to do it. No one ever really accepted that child. Father saw it only once. Mom could not handle it. Mom could not look at it without crying. I was sad all the time. Another 5 years jump. Dad ended up taking his own life. Mom was a workaholic. Sister was a neat. She would not leave the attic. The saddest person on earth. Another unsolved assault happened last year, and the child also gave birth. This one got popular. Something mysterious, and they vanished. People tell they either moved or took their own lives. The dream continued, but nothing so unusual happened. Be me. Memory of some previous lives. Probably in another universe or something. Have had partial access to them since I was 2 to 3 years old. Clear access since I was 8. Can't speak the language anymore, but the memories contain context, so I still understand them, if that makes sense. Over there, people live thousands of years, and it was kind of like a Tetsuya type setting. I never even knew what Tetsuya was until I was 25. Can't do any of that stuff here. Frustrating as hell. Not entirely convinced this isn't some kind of pocket dimension. Can't be sure I'm not just crazy though. Spend whole life looking for supernatural stuff here. Find very little. Still got a good 40 or 50 years though, so here's hoping. Tons of stuff we never figured out back there is available here though, like electricity and true flight. Hopefully I can get back there one day and get mad rich and powerful. They knew about magnets too. They just had no idea how to use them. So frustrating. Am I joking? You decide. Interesting. It's the first time someone tells a past life that had such intriguing values. The fact that they were less developed technologically. For some things it didn't matter. They had essentially magic powers at their disposal for lots of stuff, so disease was a poor people thing and civil development was okay. It's just that like, when you can shoot fire from your hands and move super fast and all that kind of other stuff, so long as you're willing to spend way too long training your innate abilities, I guess you just miss stuff. For example, when I say true flight, I mean that people there could fly, but only on a single person basis, and by literally just making themselves lighter until they could jump insane distances. The idea of flying like a bird without energy was ridiculous. They figured you needed wings to do it, and nobody had managed to create artificial ones that worked. Also, not everyone was human. There were tons of skin colors that humans did not have, strange body proportions, just weird stuff. Not like fantasy, manga animal people or elves, but for example, imagine those guys with the big fang teeth from Mortal Kombat, except they don't have blade arms, and instead, their arms are long enough that they can walk on them while standing upright, and they've got fur everywhere but the face. I have vivid memories of this, and have had them since I was very young, too young to even understand some of it. Did any information you learned from the other dimension ever serve you here? Yes, but not in ways you'd think. When I was introduced to things like math, I just knew them as soon as I saw them. There was no learning involved beyond the initial trigger. It was like the knowledge was just sitting there in my head and waiting for something to touch it. Then it would blossom out, and I'd have a complete, mid-level aptitude within a minute or two. Same thing for fighting. I nearly killed a kid when I was 9 in a schoolyard scrap because my first instinct when it came to blows was to kick out his knee and then crush his throat. Woodworking too. Bows and arrows, a few other things. Sometimes I still have this happen. Most recent one was actually with bread making, but it's rarer these days. It also helped me to comprehend what people around me were doing right and wrong, and avoid many traps like drugs, alcohol, religious vices in general. I come from a pretty crappy area, and I'm about the only person I grew up with who just never had any interest in those sort of things, no matter how bad it got. I have memories of people who fell into that sort of thing, so I knew to avoid it instinctively. That's sort of what I mean by I knew these things before I could understand them. I would remember something as a kid, and it would look one way, like a man going with a woman and then being sad after, but the context was too complex. Then, as an adult, it was clear he was wasting all his money on a woman who did not love him.